talk about like how starting this kind of job started to make you feel on the inside. Like, what were you feeling when you started to pick that up?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you brought that up because I do want to tie that into this. So definitely at the start, like you said, it was a lot of external validation, right? And it's a lot of validation specifically on your physical appearance, which I feel like we will eventually have a whole topic on, or a whole episode on this topic, because it's, I mean, I know it is a big one for you, but it's such a big one for me in the sense that pretty much everything I've ever done, like work-wise, like anything that I've tried to build has always been around my physical appearance. And this kind of transitions into like the next portion of the story that I want to share with like my fitness chapter and everything. Because when you're weight training, when you're someone who, and this obviously isn't everyone, but there's mirrors everywhere. You're constantly looking at yourself. The number one way to like track your progress is looking at your physical body, measuring different areas of your body, weighing yourself and stuff like that. So with OnlyFans and being big into fitness and then starting fitness modeling all around the same time, like while moving to a new city and hoping things were going to take off for me, my head was just being so filled with validation, but it's an acceptance and approval, but it's all based on my physical appearance.
Not to mention, like, obviously I know this about you and listeners don't know this, but like you experienced things growing up that probably you were more prone or needed those kind of validations.
Oh my God. Well,
it was one of those things where you were like,
oh, my cheeks are getting hot.
like feeling good about...
I'm like, don't call me out.
Yeah, oh, I won't
No,
go
I know,
wherever
I know.
you don't want me to go. Obviously, it's your story. But
no, everything you're saying is right, though.
It definitely... You need certain people need that to feel accepted, need to feel wanted, need to feel successful, need to prove themselves.
Let's just say this. My nickname in junior high when I was growing up, think of junior high teenage girl. You're like the most sensitive.
13, 14.
You're such like puberty,
just yeah.
Your body's changing, developing, you suddenly have sex hormones and like all this, you want to be loved by everyone, and that doesn't even include any of like the home stuff that's going on. My nickname in junior high was Body. Just Body.
Whoa.
Yep.
Mine was Al the albino.
I would like
I was
almost
really pale.
prefer that, but not.
Yeah. I'm
but
like skeleton girl. I'm so skinny. Like but I was still cute. Don't get me wrong. I was just really pale and really skinny.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, mine was
body,
and I got the nickname from guys, like.
Yeah.
But kind of to like touch on what you just said there, like, I don't think I could be the kind of person who could start an OnlyFans, who could start fitness modeling, and who would be so passionate into, like, achieving a specific body standard, a physical appearance in the gym, if I wasn't so hung up on my physical appearance. I grew up constantly being told I looked older, constantly being told how pretty I was and how pretty I was going to be. And I just, like, my head was full. I felt like that was the only thing
that gave you worth.
That was exactly what gave me worth, is my physical appearance. And that's still, like, you're saying that and I feel goosebumps in my body now, because that's still, like, hits so true to home now. And I
think a lot of women feel that in this society, especially because you're young enough to have grown up with like the Kardashians kind of taking over social media. Like when I was growing up, it was, Simple Life Paris Hilton. It was
I remember
Lindsay
Paris.
Lohan. I know, but it was now when we look at the Kardashian, there was a certain body figure. It was like being really skinny and having no boobs and no butt was like cool back then. But now all of a sudden it's like you need an ass, you need boobs, you need to look like you're 30 when you're 20, you need to have the lip fills, like the big eyes, all of those things. Mm-hmm. And like you kind of fit a little bit of that body standard. So
well, definitely whenever like the thick booty, like as soon as that trend, I'll call it, or beauty standards started to like come out, that's when I started to flourish, right? Because I'm like, that's me to a fucking T. I figure skated my whole life. I had a thick booty. I had thick legs. Like, I was a thick gal. Like, yeah, it just always, that's always how it was. But yeah, like.
And you were used to that attention. Like, sometimes I think we have certain attention and then it's like you don't want the attention, but when you don't have it, it feels like something's missing. So then you start to crave it. It's like we're craving things that aren't good for us. And like for me, like let's say sugar, for example, like I know it's really bad. I know it's not healthy for my body. I know, you know, I have certain autoimmune things that actually really hurt me when I have sugar, and I still ignore it because like the desire, that craving to get that dopamine or that serotonin or that fix, it's like enough for me not to care about all the consequences that could go along with that.
A lot of the times it's subconscious as well too, like these thoughts and these habits and patterns, you do it so many times it gets ingrained in your brain. So I grew up, and another thing is I figure skated, so my physical appearance and like body dysmorphia and eating disorders.
It's large in that community.
Well, it's modeling, dance, figure skating, fitness, like all of those sports and activities where you're literally putting your physical body out there for show for people to constantly be analyzing and judging and scrutinizing, like it weighs on you. And I grew up in that from a very young age. I had a mother who was very adamant on that as well, so I had that in the back of my ear. The only attention I got in school was when I was sexually expressive, and I felt like I was getting positive attention when I had no idea that it was negative.
From guys.
From guys, as a teen girl any girl.
Like, yeah, any woman who's heterosexual wants that attention, that's especially like during that time.
Your check mark. Like, I'm doing something right if I'm getting attention. And it was always the popular guys in school. Like, I wasn't a popular girl, but when I got the attention from the popular guys, I felt like I was doing something right. Or, yeah, it was my validation. So, yeah. Fast forward through all of that, carrying those same facts over. Obviously, like I mentioned, I was super big into the fitness, and I kind of went down the path of doing fitness modeling. So around the same time that I lost my job at OTF, I was just finishing up my personal training certification, and I was actively working on my nutrition certification. So I knew eventually that I wanted to do something with fitness because I was so passionate about it. I had been going to the gym consistently, like since I finished high school. I started going to the gym and it was like my next love. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have your sports that you grow up and you're like, oh, I love this sport. The gym was like that for me. I didn't realize how unhealthy it was at the time.
Well, becoming obsessive now.
Well, like, it was an addiction.
It wasn't just a passion. It was like you started to feel like if you weren't going or not doing it, then you all of a sudden were going to potentially like lose all of this.
The progress. Yeah. And so another thing that I'll add to this as well.
Also to your validation, what you're seeking. Like, well, also, I'm not going to be worth it if I don't go to the gym and fix my body, if I don't weigh this amount, or if my butt doesn't look like this big and like all of this stuff. It's like, especially as a woman, you feel like you become obsessed with making the world see what you think people want to see versus necessarily what you think your value is. It's like they're saying I need to look a certain way, so I need to do everything I can
absolutely
to make sure I stay and keep this same way.
Yeah. And the approval and acceptance that I was getting. So I had like my platform on Instagram. I was sharing all of my fitness. Like, I had been a thick girl, so I lost a lot of weight, and I was showing that. I was, advertising what my body looked like, my progress pictures, what I was doing, everything. And I worked hard. Like, people at the time looking at me, and even me looking at the time, I didn't realize that it was like a coping mechanism for everything that I was struggling with. But like, I worked hard and I hustled and I made some serious progress. But also at the time when I first moved to Halifax, like, I was so broke, I could not afford food. I quite literally had negatives in my in my bank account, and my friend was purchasing groceries for the two of us for like weeks and weeks and weeks. And we were not eating. Like, we were eating the bare minimum, just enough to like not go absolutely insane. But that is when I hit the leanest point of my life, and it's because I was starving myself. Yeah. And that's also when I was...
things we don't see.
I was new to Halifax. I had all of these people in the fitness community who are like, oh my God, there's this new fitness girl. She is crushing it in the gym. She looks great. She's hot. Like, she's a model as well. Like, she looks awesome. I was getting so much positive reinforcement and feedback from people that it was fueling this negative spiral that I had no idea. I thought it was like the most positive thing that was happening to me in my life. I was like, this is great. And
I'm so much more healthy. I'm inspiring other people.
Well, you also think like, when you're someone who goes to the gym and tracks your macro, like
you're cultivating.
You think that's health.
Yeah.
When you're so deep in the health and fitness community and around all these people, like you think that that's health, and it's so far from it. So this kind of led me into.
Like, it also, sorry to interrupt, but it also is happening around the same time, like influencer culture. Like TikTok exploded in 2020. You weren't all of a sudden like a Kim Kardashian, or you could be somebody who's just the girl next door or a girl from the island of PEI. And all of a sudden everyone was like, okay, well, what can I do? What can I say? Who can I be online now? And so more people were flocking to online and starting to accept like, yeah, they were still following the celebrities, but now it was like, actually, I can follow just this random person off the street and they can become famous in like a day, and they can start getting a following and have an influence.
Yeah. And it's to kind of like elaborate on that point. Like, I like literally my friends at the time were like, oh yeah, like this is Liv, she's a fitness influencer. And like people labeled me as that. I had like almost 13,000 followers on my little tiny fitness modeling Instagram account, and like someone coming from PEI who felt like she had done nothing with her life and was a nobody, like it blew me the fuck up. Like I felt like I was going somewhere. I felt like I had found my niche. I found my path, and this is what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. So I decided to go all in for fitness coaching. I had so many messages over the years of doing like my Instagram and the modeling and sharing my progress and everything. I had so many people coming to me and wanting to work with me, and yeah, they're like, give me your tips, give me your secrets. So I won't sit on this topic long, because I feel like the fitness is going to be a whole other topic that we're eventually going to talk about, and the health and the culture in that place. Oh my God. Anyway, so I worked with some clients for a while. I had done a little bit of client work in PEI, but it was like I had no idea what I was doing, like didn't know how to run a fucking program or anything like that.
You were still super young too.
And was new to the gym as well, so it was very different. But yeah, so I like essentially relaunched my fitness company. Liv Bryantton Fitness is what I called it, and like made myself a logo, and I did the whole fucking thing. And I had the most clients I had at one time was I think 7 at once. And I was drowning. 7 clients at once to handle was like way too many for me, even though the amount of money I was making off those 7 clients like wasn't enough to make up for not having a full-time job. But again, I still had OnlyFans in the back, so I was fine. I was getting by enough because I had OnlyFans, and then I had a little bit of money coming in from the online coaching. So I don't know how to explain this in like a nice, short, concise way. To sum it up, I'd been going to the gym for a total of 6 years when I decided to leave the fitness industry. And I was working with my clients. I was heavy into the fitness modeling. I still wasn't really doing explicit content on my OnlyFans yet. I think I was still mostly just sharing modeling and whatnot. And so this was my last straw, I think. And now that I'm years away, or years later, I can look back at it. I decided I was going to train for a bikini competition, which anyone who knew me in my life at the time was like, why would you do that? Because I was so against bikini competitions. I knew how fucked up they were for your health. I knew the extremes, and
it's a very different culture. And most people don't understand, like, until they're in it, or until they know somebody who's in it, like what really happens and what really goes on.
It's the amount that you're putting your body through that people don't realize. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, like she got super fucking lean, and like she was shredded and could literally pull her skin off of her body, not her fat, her skin, because there was no fat there. But like, it's so insanely unhealthy for you. But I decided to train for one. And I think the whole concept was like, fitness didn't feel like it was doing it for me. And I literally remember talking to like one of my closest friends and being like, I just need something to work towards again. Like I need something that makes me feel like I'm going somewhere in this community because I didn't feel, things weren't feeling right for me for fitness. So doing a bikini.
Do you think, like, again, do you think it's because, like, there was a small part of you deep down back there that just felt like it wasn't authentic?
100%.
Yeah. And it's like, you knew, like, you're smart enough and an intelligent enough woman to understand, like, you're trying to do something for people that is helping them, you know, helping them get healthy, helping them lose weight. But the way that this industry and this culture is it almost feels like you're contributing or participating in something that's not healthy, that's being masked as really healthy. And don't get me wrong, like, nutritionists and dietitians and coaches and personal trainers and fitness, like, there is a lot of beautiful, wonderful, great people out there. That culture can be really inspiring. People who are,
and we need those
people.
Well,
totally. I 100% think, I go to the gym, I walk, I play sports, like, I want to move my body. Like, I definitely, you need that. That's great
it's also
for mental health.
One of the number one biggest things that affects your health in a positive way,
both
or
physically, mentally,
negative.
Or a negative way. It's like, there's a fine, like, with everything, there's a fine line of what becomes you know, a hobby versus being, like, maintenance, like, you know, going to the gym for 30 minutes, moving your body every day up to an hour, like, you know, lifting 2 to 3 times a week, whatever that looks like. But then there's where it turns into, like, an unhealthy obsession, or it turns into an addiction, or it turns into, okay, I'm not doing this for my health anymore, I'm doing this for other people to make me feel like I'm good enough.
But it's also, like, how much of that you tie to your physical appearance, but it's also those coping mechanisms in the background that you don't realize. Like, when I was struggling with an emotion that I wasn't able to feel or didn't want to feel, I would go to the gym.
Yeah.
And, like, when you think about that, you're like, oh, that's not so bad. Like, she goes to the gym, and
yeah,
people
like, I
say
actually give that advice sometimes. Well, like, if you're struggling, go to the gym. Like,
and it is go for a walk, right?
Like,
like refresh your mind. Put your body through some struggle so that your brain isn't struggling so much, or so you can think about things more logically. But what that did to me for so many years of doing that was, it became an addiction.
Like, when you shoved it, you weren't actually coming back after and processing it. You were just shoving it away. It was
in a dissociation.
Yeah, you're using it as a distraction.
Yeah. And, that on top of, like, I wasn't eating properly. I wasn't eating the right foods. Like, you think because you're tracking your macros. And so I want to touch on the point where you're like, you feel like you're now becoming harmful to the community because you're affecting things just as negatively as, like, what you're going through.
Think about this. You're now getting people to pay you to be the professional and, like, healthy lifestyle. Meanwhile, you're starving yourself and you're going to the gym, like, 3 times a day sometimes and being very unhealthy. So it's like you're telling these people, like, all these things, but you're not following those same things yourself and treating your own body that way.
Yeah.
So you're probably having this, like, internal crisis of, like, I'm supposed to be this person. Everyone thinks I'm this person. I'm such an influence. I'm so inspiring.
I was doing everything I could to be that person for the people.
But you weren't. They don't really know what's actually happening behind the scenes.
This is another thing that's a problem with social media, is because I'm showing, like, and don't get me wrong, I was very adamant on showing, like, my natural self, my depressed self. Like, I would always share when I was not doing well. Like, I was very... that was something I was always passionate about because I felt like an imposter. That was one of the, I remember reading so many books. I'd be on the treadmill, fucking walking my little heart out for like an hour and reading a whole fucking book on imposter syndrome and being like, this is me right now. Like, I show up on Instagram as this healthy, fit person. Everyone tells me I'm body goals. Everyone tells me they want my body. Meanwhile, I have the most severe body dysmorphia I've ever experienced in my life. Now I'm doing OnlyFans, which is just another gig that completely relies on my physical appearance, which at the time I did not attach or associate these together whatsoever. But all of this pressure started to come up out of nowhere. And this is why I was pulling at straws. This is why I decided to do the bikini competition, which I knew I didn't want to do and was so unhealthy.
To make you feel alive.
Well, it was, when I know something's not working for me, I'll go to, like, almost extremes to prove that it is, even though I know deep down that it's not. So I feel like that was my, like, last kick at it. So I trained for the bodybuilding competition I was initially 17 weeks out, and I went about 6 weeks into it and then found out because of COVID it was going to be pushed back another few weeks, and my entire prep was going to become a 21-week prep, which I was like, 17 weeks is already pretty long for someone who has been in the gym and already had a good base, and now it was up to 21 weeks, and I was just like, this is now, like, I feel like the universe is telling me that I should not be doing this. So at the same time that I'm having my coach guiding me to do all these new, more extreme things so that my body can get to this extremely low weight that is so severely unhealthy for women and their hormones alone, point blank, we should never ever be at that weight.
Body fat percentage.
Never.
Yeah,
we really
to be like
we're not supposed to be there.
25 to 30% body fat.
Literally. Yeah. So yeah, all of this, like, I'm learning all this new information that I already knew, but at the same time am still coaching my other clients, and I was really struggling to show up for them because, kind of like you said, I felt like an imposter. I felt like a phony.
Yeah.
Everything that I was doing for myself,
There's probably some guilt and shame in there.
Well, people are complimenting me. They're like, you look better than you've ever looked. And I'm like, cool, I starved myself for the last 2 months, and I
hate yourself.
Feel like I'm going crazy. Yeah. And I've never had so many panic attacks in my life, and my social anxiety is extreme. Like, why am I so miserable?
Meanwhile, like, we are not even considering the fact that this is still going on during COVID.
This is all during COVID.
Where, like, forget our own personal experiences for a second. Like, the world, the collective, the entire society is going through something as a horrible, for the first time in our lifetime, really. Yeah. And you're trying to also navigate that.
Navigate something so new and unknown. Like, yeah, the stress was there.
You're still trying to find your purpose this whole time.
Well, I thought fitness was my purpose. Yeah. I was like, I am destined to be a fitness trainer. I am destined. And some things that have always stuck true to me is I've always wanted to help people. I've always wanted to see that what I'm doing for myself or what I'm doing for other people is having a positive influence on them. When you think of coaching, that's like, it goes right with it, right? I'm like, I'm doing it. This is so in line. I have I went to school for this. Like, I'm doing my nutrition certifications, and yeah, like, this is going to go somewhere for me. I had so many people interested in working with me, but I could not for the life of me make it work out because it wasn't meant to, point blank. But yeah, so I decided to quit the bodybuilding competition. I decided to message.
You didn't actually end up doing it at all.
I did not finish the training. I can't remember exactly how many weeks in. I think I was 8 to 10 weeks in when I messaged him, and I was like, yeah, my excuse was that, like, I don't want it to get pushed off, or I don't want to train for that long and then find out COVID cancels the whole thing again. When in reality, and this was kind of subconscious at the time, like, I was coming to the end of my chapter with the fitness influencer coach lifestyle that I was living there. So around the same time that I decided, I think I quit my competition first, the training for it, and then I did a couple more weeks with my clients, but I told them shortly after that, like, hey, we're going to finish your sessions. We're going to finish what you've paid for.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to let you know that I'm not going to be continuing to coach from here on out.
Right.
And they were pretty upset. I got, like, some concerns, and even, like, months after I did, like, they checked back in with me to see, like, how I was doing, because it really caught people off guard. So
yeah, so all of a sudden, like, somebody who's, like, almost at their peak and doing really well and being really successful is like, just kidding, guys, I'm quitting.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? Like,
you're just getting started.
Where's
like, what
this coming from?
Yeah, like, we thought you were, and I had people on, like, a waiting list who wanted to jump in after these clients finished up, and I could not manage it, and I didn't understand why. And I thought there was something wrong with me. And it's only now, and let me finish the story up, and then we'll kind of get into this next part. So when I decided to quit, I'm, like, kind of getting a little bit emotional.
That's okay. That's what this is all about. We're healing, girl. We're going through the stories. We're finding, opportunities to be vulnerable and remember the things that make us who we are today and bring us to where we are right now, sitting across from each other, doing this so other people who are experiencing the same thing, who might be in it right now. People that I know and love who've experienced similar things, and I'm thinking about them, and it's just like, this is really good, and I thank you for sharing this and opening up, and, like, I'm so proud of you, and
don't make me more emotional.
This is one of many, vulnerable moments we're gonna have, but
it is.
In the end, it's hopefully gonna be healing for you.
I already know that it's healing, and I can feel it in my body as we're even having this conversation. And I think another reason why I'm getting emotional is because I felt a lot of guilt whenever I decided to stop living that life and stop showing up as that person that I thought that I was supposed to be. And it was a lot of guilt for myself, but it was, when you show up and have like a presence on Instagram, you feel an obligation to these people who you don't even fucking know.
Yeah.
And like, I wasn't a huge influencer by all means, guys. I had like 12,000 some followers.
But
like,
it can be a lot for a small community. We're not, we're not fucking LA, California. Like,
well, I got a lot from people I knew locally.
Yeah,
a lot
totally.
of people built me up, and a lot of people and it is something to be proud of. And like, yeah, like it is what it is. It was whatever. But shortly after I decided to quit the bodybuilding competition and no longer coach clients, I cold turkey quit the gym. And that's this is the part that makes me the most emotional, because I feel like I let people down. I feel like I let myself down. And
it's like you had done all this work, you had built this image, you all of a sudden were like putting yourself out there to help other people, and then you're like walking away from it all. And you're like, I can imagine how fearful that is, because you feel like, okay, this was supposed to be my purpose. This was supposed to make me feel good.
For me.
This was everything I'd gone through. And again, we haven't gone over your childhood or anything like that, but like, and people don't know this, but this was a big deal. You were making money, you were being independent, you were moving up. There was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. So you finally get to like your peak, and you're like,
I think I found my path. I think I found my niche, and I see my future. I see the future path that I'm about to take, and it all makes sense. It all lines up, right? Except for this massive feeling of everything is wrong, and I don't know
not
why.
Meant to be. So like, how scary? Because like, when you give that up and you don't have a backup plan, or you don't really know the reasons as to why, you're not healed, you're not going through your journey at this point, you're doing reflection, but you're still so young and naive into the whole journey that you're,
God, like,
so you have no idea what's coming. So like, how
clue.
terrifying for anybody who's like starting over in a way, or like not even starting at all, like you just kind of took a step back.
Well, it touches on the feeling like your life is falling apart, because obviously I felt like I was hitting rock bottom. I thought,
how are you going to pay your bills?
Well,
how
I'm
are
like,
you going to be able to do anything?
Not even that, but like this is supposed to be me. I'm supposed to be a fitness influencer. I'm supposed to be this fit girl that everyone looks up to. I'm supposed to work with clients. I'm supposed to work with, and I was working with brands. Like I had all of the things that I was dreaming and manifesting for, and they were happening.
And when you got it, you were like, wait a sec, this doesn't feel good.
It wasn't lining up. And at the time, I didn't know enough about intuitive feelings. I wasn't in tune enough with my body, or even my spirituality in general, to know that all of those feelings that I were feeling, it wasn't that there was something wrong with me. It was the universe, and it was myself pushing me onto my proper path, which I can look back on that and see that now. But at the time, the feelings that were coming up was failure. That is the only thing that I felt. And even like saying that word right now makes me so emotional, because I haven't said this out loud. I've told my friends, like the people who knew that I just quit the gym and like quit, they're like, oh no, this is probably good for your health. And I'm like, yeah, no, it is. Like, I've been going hard for way too long, but no one knew the reality of like how severe my mental and physical health really, really was. Like,
Nora's coming over meowing.
She heard me crying.
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 Yeah. And she's like, I'm intuitive. I know you're upset. Let me come cuddle you.
I can't believe how long this episode is already, but it's just like, there's so much good stuff that goes to this, like
lessons, learning.
It's things that I know other people have gone through or are going through and need to hear. And I also feel like I said, like I felt like I owed these people that followed me on Instagram, and the people that wanted to work with me, and the people that looked up to me, like I felt like I owed everyone an explanation. And I just cold turkey, I didn't say anything. I didn't show up on my Instagram and like really even address the fact that I
going to take a break.
Well, I didn't even address the fact that I decided to quit the bodybuilding competition, whereas I was taking everyone on I was updating them on my weekly progress and everything. Like I was and that was one of the biggest struggles, is because I was putting so much of my life online for people to see and be a part of and whatnot, that when my path changed so drastically, like Yeah, I felt like I was failing myself, but I felt like I was failing a lot of other people.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah, so heavy little moment there. This is a whole other topic that I am extremely passionate about, like health and fitness and that industry. And I can't wait for us to have another episode specifically on that because we have so much more to go into and I have so many more experiences to share and just, yeah, like it's really extreme stuff. But yeah, kind of back to the point of now my life is fucking falling apart again. And I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna do now? Like now I have an OnlyFans and I'm like, okay, thank God for this. Yet again, OnlyFans saving my life and like just allowing me to just pay the bills and have enough money for food and get by and whatnot. But the biggest thing was I didn't know what my purpose was anymore. I felt brief senses of fulfillment from the fitness path, but it wasn't what I thought that fulfillment was going to feel like. It wasn't what I thought I was going to get from that. And it's just the reality that it wasn't lining up with where I was supposed to be. I did my time on that path, but it was time for me to transition off to another one. So yeah, this is like timeline wise, this is about this. I think it was midsummer of 2021 it would have been. But yeah, so after that, it was like, pick your socks up. What the fuck are you gonna do now? And I think I started to hermit because I felt really ashamed of that. There was a lot of feelings that came up there that I definitely did not address and didn't even really know were happening at the time until like I'm years later now looking at it and I'm like, oh, well, I can point out what this was. I can point out what that was. But in the moment, I didn't know what was wrong. I thought I was really fucked up. And I think after that, I went on depression medication and anti-anxiety medication and did a little journey on that. And what I really thought was wrong was I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought like my mental health is so fucked up that
I just be happy?
I can't even coach people. I can't even go to the gym. I can't even, you know what I mean?
I had everything and I'm just giving it up. Why can't I be
happy? But it's because of me, because there's something wrong inside of me that I need medication for. It's a chemical imbalance and someone needs to fix me or I just need to fix this. So yeah, that obviously was not the fucking case. But again, the only thing I was really focusing on was OnlyFans at the time. And I think it was shortly after this that I decided to start doing explicit content.
Go full tilt. Well, you're like the extreme kind of girl. It's like you put yourself...
I put my all into everything.
You're going to do it 110%. It's like the preface of leaning up to like what you were doing with the fitness stuff. You kind of like taken that step back. You felt
I was just doing it for me.
So now all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, I still have this thing that's been carrying me through for the last year. Mm-hmm. I don't have, you don't have other jobs. This is your only source of income.
Yeah.
And you're now not focused on the gym and fitness and like distracting yourself with that timely consuming, all encompassing lifestyle. So you're like, I have more time, more space. Now, I guess more energy to put back into this other thing that's still kind of giving me that validation. You're like, I'm lacking my happiness in every other area of my life right now, but I'm still
filling me up?
Yeah, I'm still kind of getting slightly enough of that dopamine from that, the men or whomever's following you, telling you how awesome you still are. You're now seeking again because you're still in that place where you haven't done a lot of the healing or growth. You're seeking external validation. You're seeking that external filling your cup from somewhere else other than yourself.
And I felt like there was something so wrong with me.
You could never fill your own cup.
Well, I couldn't trust myself either. Yeah. It was like the only place to look was outsourcing, like to get it from other people.
Like plugging your plug into an outlet and getting the charge from wherever that is, I think we talked about it in my episode. It's like some people go to drugs or alcohol or sex or whatever. Or I go to food. I love like snacks and candy. And
I go to food. I go to sex. And I go to marijuana.
Yeah, and I mean, like for me, there's other coping mechanisms, and obviously,
but everyone has something or multiple.
But like we have a really hard time to like sit still and be with ourselves and try to really understand where these feelings are coming from. And at the time, when you're young or when you're just starting to ask like, who am I? What is my purpose? Why am I doing this? Why am I here?
To start like making your own path.
Yeah. And that happens usually, in our early 20s. Like that's, and then we have another one usually in our 50s. I'd mentioned that last time, that like midlife crisis. And if you're more on the spiritual side or you're meant to be in a spiritual place in your life, you often have those quote unquote existential crises a lot earlier on in life, so that you have the time and the path and the opportunity to start to question those things and really get to know Liv or whomever we're speaking about. But so you're now like, okay, well, I'm not making enough really to sustain me more than just like my basic bills. So what can I do next to take that to the next level? Now all of a sudden, so for people who don't really know, explicit content would entail what?
Well, it's porn. Yeah. Like I started to do sex work and create porn, whereas
so you jumped from like modeling photos right into like, here's my vagina, everyone.
No, it wasn't like that. So my first year and a half, which this timeline lines up because I started January 2020, so mid 2021 was about my year and a half mark, and through that full year and a half, I obviously had people asking for pussy pics. I had people asking for, oh, do you have like fucking videos? And I was like, oh my Jesus, no, what? Like, I'm not sharing that with you. Like, what do you mean? And I was like that back then. I was like, I would never share my pussy. I'm not creating explicit content. But obviously, like, over a year and a half, a lot more people started doing OnlyFans. Yeah, and I started
competition, and it's saturated. Yeah.
Well,
so
it
now
started
you have to stand out a little bit.
Yeah,
you have to be like.
Even then, there wasn't a lot of locals that were doing it, and I always felt like there was the OnlyFans community, and then there was me who was doing OnlyFans, but I wasn't doing the same OnlyFans that everyone else was doing. I was doing what I was comfortable with, and it was very specific to me. And even now, I would still say the same, except I'm definitely more in the community because I do sex work now. But yeah, it slowly transitioned to that. It started with every now and then I do a custom video for someone, or I started sharing titty pictures is I think where it started. Titties, obviously, and then eventually
titties.
I know, and then eventually went to nude. But even now, like my OnlyFans is very like, you can see everything, but you also don't get to see everything just for free. Like I'm very strategic about how I utilize it and to use it to make money.
You're officially rated R now. Like you are.
Oh yeah.
You're doing it all. But that also, like, you know, the more you do, the more you can charge, the more money you can make from this. And at this point, you're trying to build a life for yourself.
Well, I was also trying to make it my full-time gig because I had this like quarter-life crisis where I was like, what I thought that I was going to do with my life didn't work out for me, and it actually made me really unhealthy and really unhappy. And I died. I was so depressed. I literally, like, the core of who I thought I was broke in half, and I was just like, well, I don't know what to do with these two parts because they don't go back together. So it was like finding myself all over again.
And let me ask you a hard question that I'm sure some of our listeners are probably thinking, like, why don't you just go get a normal job, Liv?
Oh my God.
Like, I know you mentioned, okay, well, I hate authority. I don't want to work for other people. Like, you had this freedom now for a year and a half to kind of be, 23, 24 years old, working for yourself and working, not 9 to 5 hours. You're working a few hours here, a few hours there. You can work on weekend in the morning.
It's all like your own.
The freedom. Yeah. So like, but other people are probably sitting there thinking like, okay, well, just get a job, just go serve again, just go back to school. Like what was that for you?
Well, all those questions came up countless times, right? And even literally up until a couple weeks ago, I was on the phone with my mom talking about a potential job opportunity that I'm absolutely not taking, nor will I. But like, yeah, there's always that feeling in the back of your mind, like. For the longest time, I wouldn't even tell people that I did OnlyFans, personally, because I was keeping it kind of secret from people who I didn't want to know, because people judged immediately, even if I wasn't doing explicit content on there, they immediately thought I was scandalous, which I hated that. But also just because it's like, I don't know, I didn't feel like it was a real job, and I felt embarrassed to tell people that that's what my job was. And even up until like
there's a huge stigma.
Yeah, and even until like the past year, like, I've really only now been able to be like, yeah, I do sex work. I create porn. I am a sex worker. I am a full-time adult content creator. Yeah. Like, I tell people now what I do because...
You're trying to own it.
Well, yeah. And kind of like I said about how I'm super passionate about, like, health and fitness and, like, helping people. Another one is sexuality. I don't think that we need to be ashamed of our nude bodies. I think it's pathetic that we hide ourselves in clothing all day when we all have the same parts. We literally were born naked. Like, I don't know. I think sexuality and the stigmatization.
You're born naked, the rest is drag. Love RuPaul.
The stigmatization around just like nudity and the female body and sexualization, I have some big
You're
feelings.
A big free the nipple kind of girl.
I totally am. And there's no way that I could be the kind of girl that jumps on an OnlyFans and starts doing this kind of work if I wasn't that person. So,
right. And this is also like, I think, you know, we'll go back to like women in their bodies, and we definitely have societal pressures, like you were saying, and like a lot of us are, I guess, groomed or told certain things at such a young age that like,
yeah.
I mean, I know me, I listened to your story, and obviously guys like Liv told me mostly everything, and I think some days I'm like, I could never, like my mind goes, I'm like, I could never do that. Oh my God, I could never put myself in that position. But like, I kind of have, but just not with strangers, like with boyfriends or guys I liked.
Oh
like,
God, yeah.
I've done a lot of that stuff like privately in my private life with my partners, but like, to imagine putting myself out there.
Well, a lot of people struggle alone to just be able to do that with partners or with themselves.
Or stand by myself in the mirror and look at myself and find love for my body. Like, but I have a hard time with that.
Do all of that on the internet and then share it with people and
also be
confident in
accepting money from that too. Oh, like that in itself is a whole other boundary, I'm sure.
Oh my God, yeah.
We could get
the
into
amount of
that,
therapy I've done on this. You guys have
but
no
like,
idea.
That's the thing. Like, it's funny because I like joke to you even. I'm like, oh, you're like paying or charging like $50 a photo. Now here I am like giving it to a guy on Tinder for free. Like, and I'm like, okay, I can't judge you for that if I'm doing things like this for free and not even like getting anything except a ghost the next day. I'm like, oh, I'm really that bad, guys? No, just kidding. But no, I'm begging for more until I say no, and then they ghost. So, you know, that's all. I'm like, just sign up for my friend's OnlyFans.
Shut the fuck up. That is a good point to make, though, because that was another thing that I definitely struggled with, was
the energy exchange.
Well, that with the money, and also like thinking, oh, I'm doing something wrong. Yeah. I'm a slut, but not the good one. I'm, you know, listen, we will definitely have a lot of topics on sexuality, and I have a lot of stories and a lot of,
they're fun,
unfortunate history. Yeah.
I'm starting to think of my stories. I'm like, wait, they're not fun.
No, a lot of it is not fun.
But a lot of it is great because like these conversations are like important to have.
Well, it's talking about it, right? Like, this is a huge for me that I'm able to sit here and even
honestly
say that I'm a sex worker and this is the type of work that I do, and to be open about my full-time gig and like what I've been doing over the past few years. Like, I felt so shameful to like share that with people, and I felt shameful specifically because I did the fitness thing before, and I felt like I made it before and that didn't work out and I failed at that, so now I'm doing this, and I felt like it was a downgrade because sex is such a shameful thing.
Like the body industry, or the fitness industry rather, is like celebrated, and people online are like,
the positive feedback from everyone was insane. And then as soon as I started doing OnlyFans, like,
it's like, whoa, you just took a turn.
Well, it's not the same, and women specifically start judging you more, and like they have negative views of you.
I mean, I can't lie. It's like, I definitely, before I learned, like, there's moments where I'm just like, oh. And then you immediately have a moment of like, oh, she's that kind of person. Before you get to know, like, Liv, guys, it's like, she doesn't wear makeup. She wears, like, she's in a fucking, like, Sporty Spice Adidas, like, sweater, which I'm jealous of. I literally
always dress like a
you
dude.
don't, and it's just, like, you're funny and goofy and, like, a child sometimes. Oh, my God, and it's, fully. Like, definitely, there's, like, two very different sides of you.
There's so many sides to me.
Spend
like,
time with, like, right? Like, it's probably in your chart. And we'll definitely
my mom was a Gemini. So
my mom's a Gemini, too.
Oh, right. Maybe we got that from them.
And I always joke, my parents are both Gemini. I was like, I grew up with 4 parents, not 2. But anyway, let's get back. I know this episode's getting long, so let's talk about, you know, where you're at right now. Obviously, we kind of skipped over where you're now doing explicit content full time. You're making some money, but all of a sudden something changed, and that same feeling that you had with the fitness stuff when that started to creep in is starting to creep back in again. So now let's fast forward to where you're at with how you're feeling about what you've been doing the last year.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, literally just you saying exactly that gave me like a pit in my stomach, which tells you where I'm at.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, as we've kind of mentioned throughout this podcast and based off the stuff that throughout this episode, sorry, and based off the stuff I've been sharing, a lot of the things that I've been doing have been associated to my physical appearance and a lot of external validation, and it's all trauma, unfortunately. So here I am in another gig doing something that is completely and solely based on my physical appearance. And now
other people.
It's not just the way that my physical appearance looks. Like you said, it's pleasing other people. I now have to get these people off, and I have to make them enjoy my content or enjoy me enough that they want to stick around and keep paying me.
Like threatening and still like draining you.
Absolutely.
And if it's not something that you feel like is sustainable or your passion, it's a lot harder for us to show up to a job every day. It doesn't matter. You're a cashier, a waitress, a construction worker, or a sex worker. It doesn't matter. If you're showing up every day, you have to put the extra energy, emotional energy, physical for you and other people who are in physical labor jobs. Like it dwells on us and takes a lot more effort to do things that we're not passionate about anymore. And maybe we once were, and we change. We're evolving species. We're not constantly. We're cyclical. We're changing all the time. So like what worked for you last year and like the new people that enter your life, the conversations you have, and as you get older you're starting to
it all
mold into a new elevated version. So so we had met in May of last year, slightly above that, but, really hung out in May for your birthday. And that, started to be right. That summer was when you started to shift into.
Yeah. So, I mean, coming to the end of 2021, I started going to therapy for the first time in my life. And a lot had come up. I was in a relationship at the time, and the relationship is actually kind of what pushed me to start therapy, because we were having issues in our relationship with me not having enough sexual energy for him when I was working a full-time sex work job.
For everyone else.
And what he was asking, well, I mean, we won't get into that.
Specifically just this. Let's just talk about this little point, though.
Yeah.
It's fair to be like,
in a relationship with someone.
I want have a sexual relationship that's healthy.
And I want it to be for me first before it's for all these other randoms on the internet.
And that in itself is really difficult for people. I'm sure there are people who might listen who have a partner who does OnlyFans, and if they're not participating in it, because I know a lot of couples do things together, but like, I know for me, I could personally, and that's just a me thing, would personally never be able to date somebody who's doing OnlyFans, because that's a private thing that I want to keep in the bedroom for us. And like knowing that he's doing that for other women or other men, obviously it's not something that I feel
it is not for
everyone.
With. Yeah. No. And even just like friendships around, like it's hard to be around. And I've had guys literally tell me like I could never date someone who does that. And I'm like, okay, well, you're in the wrong place, because this is what I do. And yeah, like, I don't know. I've not had really a successful relationship while doing OnlyFans yet. Yet is what I said. But we will see if that ever happens. I'm not saying that you can't do sex work and have healthy relationships, because you absolutely can. There's millions of people out there who are doing it right now. Yeah. But I think what it came down to was my personal sexuality was starting to struggle, and that's why it wasn't doing so well in my relationship.
Like doing the opposite of what you were trying to do originally. It's like you were saying like free the nipple, I'm empowering myself, I'm learning to love my body, and like being open and vulnerable in that way.
And I still stand by that, because there was so much positive like that I got from that, and it reinforced a lot of those beliefs for me, and I got to actively like show up in life.
Right. But it gets to a point where it's like, I need something more beyond that. Like, you've learned this lesson. You're strong and independent, powerful woman. Anybody who meets you knows that, on the outside at least, we're going to see this, you show up in a really beautiful way. But now you're at a place where you're like, okay, I feel like my internal life is falling apart. I'm not feeling happy in my job anymore. I'm exhausted. I'm burnt out. I'm changing and evolving, and my job's staying the same. And so now I need to make an effort to see something else and to find something else that's more aligned with the Liv I am today versus the Liv I was yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. And Exactly that. I just eventually started to realize that, like, yeah, I was good at OnlyFans, but was it something that I wanted to do necessarily? Or was it, I think what it was I was already doing a lot of the tasks that I started doing when I started. I was already living like that. I was already being sexually expressive. I was exploring new things. I was meeting new people and engaging with different partners. And I was putting myself into that community and into that lifestyle. So then when I started actually doing that work full time, and now I'm not relying on anything else, right? I'm only doing this now full time. It started to catch up with me that, like, all of that energy that I had for myself before that felt so, like, I always felt like I had so much sexual energy and I didn't know why. Like, I felt like there was something wrong with me, and I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. Then when I started putting all of that towards this one job, it's like I suddenly didn't have any of that for myself anymore. And everything
sex shouldn't be work. Sex is meant to be pleasurable, and
well, it is.
It's not meant to be something that you do and take your emotions, and it becomes a mental and physical thing versus like an emotional, spiritual experience. And now you're kind of utilizing a piece of us. Like, it's like the same thing as like food and water and shelter. Like, sex is one of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like they're on the bottom of what we need to.
We have
our
literal
human
sexual
species
needs,
come from that experience,
yeah.
And our sexual organs are a massive part of like why we've evolved to who we are. So that basic need is now becoming a chore. And imagine how you must be feeling.
Well, it literally, like, the chore that hit really hard. It was a chore. It was all work. And yeah, I mean, the further that I got into this field of work, I mean, people do collaborations, right? Like that, I started to get to a point where I wasn't able to manage what I was doing all on my own anymore. It was starting to weigh on me. I did a lot of solo content, but I shared a couple things. You
kind of have to innovate and keep changing. People get bored.
Like, well, totally. But also, like, there's more to do in it than what I was doing. I wasn't sharing boy-girl content or any girl-girl content or anything like that. I was just sharing me. It was just my stuff. And people loved that. And I was doing really great off that for a while. But then I started sharing some stuff with said boyfriend that I was with. And then our sex life kind of plummeted. And then my money kind of started to plummet because I now have this person asking for my sexual energy. When I would try to give it to them, my work would plummet. So it was just this battle of, I'm like, well, I don't know how to have a healthy sex life with my boyfriend and how to have a healthy work relationship when they're both asking. Well, when they're both asking for the same energy that I already am starting to feel like is depleting.
And then you have nothing for yourself.
Yeah, and at the same time, I'm trying to work so much and work more hours and come up with these new ideas and create more so that I can get somewhere with it and start making more money and start doing better on it.
Let's not even get into inflation.
Well, oh God, we won't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, to kind of wrap this up, I guess.
Where are you at now? How are you doing now?
I am still in the same place.
Yeah.
And that's scary to say on here because I don't want, like, I'm scared that my fans and the people who support me will be like, oh, she doesn't want to do this anymore. She's gonna kick the curb. She's gonna like run out on a and like that's a fear because this is all I do for work right now, guys. And kind of going back to the question you asked me earlier, why don't you just get a normal job, a real job like everyone else? I fucking tried and I can't. Yeah. Like, if you're someone who does not work in the corporate 9-to-5 hustle, like, I will never be that type of person. I never will be. I don't believe in it. Even my friends who do it, no offense to the people who do, but I don't believe in it. I don't trust it. And I think y'all are just as unfucking happy working for that corporate job that you hate as I am doing a job that isn't fulfilling me. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's okay. Everybody, you don't have to. And that's the thing. Your soul craves other things.
It does.
Creativity,
and it always will.
Art, culture, and a lot of people out there are like that. You're slower living. You're not a hustle and bustle person.
I never will be.
And you're a Taurus, babe.
I'm a Taurus. I'm meant to literally be in a fucking forest, never working again. Like,
so I think, like, let me just give my perspective and, like, short and sweet, but from what I've seen from the May 2022 to the almost March 2023, you've grown a lot, and you've started photography and you're really good at it. And we started this podcast that we jokingly talked about in August of last year. Yep. And it's going to come up a year this summer.
Which is crazy.
Like, this is art, this is culture, this is sharing, this is storytelling, this is your passion, this is the fire, this is the part of you that you tried to find in OnlyFans, that you tried to find in the fitness industry, that you tried to find in, like, modeling, like, things that, you know, are fun and exhilarating, but it's not your purpose. It's not who you are. It's not why Liv was put on this earth. And I see, and I think, you know, we always say everything happens for a reason. People come into your life for whatever that might look like. And I know you're struggling to find what makes Liv's fire ignite. But from what I'm seeing is you're doing an awfully good job at continuing to fight for that and to continue to work on things that make you happy, which is the photography, the storytelling from the podcast, art on social media, our sharing of, like, positive, and again, not toxic positivity, but, like, real life stuff mixed with, like, motivation and inspiration and passion. Give yourself some credit. This is not a forever thing. You're not going to be opening up your butthole for everyone for the rest of your life. And yes, sorry, that's threatening to people. She's doing it for the foreseeable future. This, you know, this right now, this is just a hobby, but it's a part of your story, and it's going to be a beautiful part of who Liv is tomorrow.
I also think, like, the whole gig around OnlyFans and the path that led me to OnlyFans and, like, where I am now and everything that you basically just said, like, I would not be in this tremendously deep pit of healing right now if I didn't go through all of this. The reality is I went through a lot of sexual traumas, and a lot of those things didn't
Funny
really...
how that shows up in other ways, right?
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. A lot of that stuff I wasn't even really aware of for myself, or, like, in this relationship with this person. Like, none of that stuff would have come forward if I didn't do a gig like OnlyFans, and I'm aware of that. And I also think I wouldn't be in this place where I can look back and be like, I am solely fueled up by external validation of my physical appearance by people. Like, I wouldn't have
you're tying your, like we kind of talked about with my episodes, like I was tying my identity to how much
as we
could influence and be successful and make money and have a title, and, like, you're kind of tying your identity to the same deal, but in just a different industry. So it's all relative, and we all do it at some point in our lives, whether we're tying our worth to being a mother or how good of a entrepreneur, or, you know, whatever that might look like for us as an individual. Like, it is really hard not to externally tie our value to things that are outside of ourselves. It is a very difficult journey to, like, slow down, take a step back, and, like, get to know us. We're so distracted by our kids, our partners, our family members, our friends, society, our bosses, our jobs, our coworkers, whatever that looks like, that, like, we don't get the chance to, like, ask ourselves those tough questions and, like, give ourselves the opportunity to actually, like, answer them.
Also, how often do you actually, like, just sit with yourself and don't outsource for other people's opinions? So we tie a lot of our identity into all of these things because we have our friends, our family, randoms on the internet, all these people that we're surrounding ourselves with daily. We have them, like, shoving it down our throat, and sometimes it's so supportive and it's so loving and it comes from the best fucking place, but it's hard not to hear all of these things and to take them into account and to almost, like, morph yourself into being this person that you think everyone wants you to be so badly. And that's really what I think this whole episode and this whole journey and why this is such, like, a very passionate thing for me to share is because I'm 26 years old, and I can tell you that I am still, up until this very moment, living for other people. I am living my life and showing up as a version of myself that is catered for other people. And I like that you brought in the photography. I like that you brought in the podcast, because that's really where I want to end this on is, like, I'm not staying here forever. One thing that I learned after failing through the fitness path and that whole industry and it not becoming what I
Choosing
thought.
to fail.
Yes, choosing a different path from that one is that when you feel like your life is actually falling apart, we've said this before, it's not. It's not.
Beautiful opportunities and realizations come from those deep, dark, hurtful, painful, broken places.
Well, everything that you think is tearing you down and is ending your life is happening for you because you can't see it yet. You don't know why. You don't know what the end destination is. And in those moments, it's really fucking hard to even like attach that to anything positive. It literally feels like the universe is out to get you. And I've been there countless times. And I'm in another state where I'm like, again, really? Like, again, I have to go through this where I have to come to the realization that everything that I've been doing every day is not for me anymore. And it's really heavy and it doesn't feel good. It feels fucking awful. But to kind of lighten this a little bit, I'm now at this place where I am continuing to do my job. I'm working, whatever my job is, doesn't matter. I'm doing my job the exact same as everyone else is doing their job. But I have in the back of my mind that there's something out there that is going to fill me up and is going to be my job one day, but it's not going to feel like a job anymore. And I thought that was OnlyFans, and it was. For a little bit, it didn't feel like work, and it didn't feel like something I had to keep up with, which was probably why I did so well on it, and it felt like it was going to go somewhere long-term for me. But now that's where photography and the podcast and showing up in the world as my real authentic self. I want to
people to get to know like the real heart of you and not the physical you.
Stop looking at my body. Stop telling me that I'm body goals. Stop telling me that I have a fat ass and that you'd love to fuck me.
Yeah.
And get to know me as a person.
Yeah,
get
you're
to know
getting to that age where
who
it's
I am.
I have more value to bring to this world.
Like this is a recurring comment that I get from people who meet me, who have known me based off like my internet persona. They meet me and they're like, oh wow, I wasn't expecting you to actually be able to hold conversations the way that you do, or I definitely wasn't anticipating you to be so kind and caring and down to earth. And I'm like, y'all, I am a cool fucking person who just happened to share a weird ass version of herself on the internet. And it's like, that's parts of me, don't get me wrong, but
that's not all of you.
The person that you'll be hearing mumbling and jumbling and going on and on and on these fucking stories on fucking the podcast episodes, this is the real Liv. I mumble, I fuck up, I do all these crazy different things. But yeah, I would say that I'm finally in a place where I'm pursuing my next passion. And yeah.
And this one's a good one, guys.
Well, it is a real good one.
This one I think it's
it this time.
We got this.
Don't get me wrong, the path is not going to be what I think it is, and it never will. It never is, trust me. But I think that's kind of the joy and the positivity in it, right? Is you leave it up to the universe. You trust in
they have your back.
In the universe and your higher self, and they're both everyone is watching you and guiding you. And it's just, yeah, keeping hope.
Yeah, hope is really important. And, you know, I think I also mentioned this before, is like the thing that keeps me going is like my unwavering faith that it's going to work out.
That it's going to be okay one day.
Like believing it despite all the continuously difficult and beautiful things throughout your life. Like you have to have this trust, this faith, this hope, this belief that what will be, and it will be for you for the best possible opportunity. And whatever that looks like, you know, you may be able to have a vision of it or not, but trust that it is meant for you and not happening to you. So
yeah,
but anyway, I'm really proud of you. Good job on your sharing. And I know this was really tough for you. I know this is you opening up about a part of you that is open but like not actually
has felt closed for like so long.
So now, you know, it's just the doors creaked open. We're going to start to open the floodgates and see where
literally feel like this conversation is like opening
the door.
Like this next week for me is going to be crazy. Like I'm going to have so much like
reflection.
Just a lot of trauma will come up and trigger, which is great.
What we need, right?
It's everything is happening
You're
for
trauma
a reason.
Mamas,
we are. We're going to talk about our traumas with you. We're going to guide you through your own, even though we don't really know what they are right now, but I'm sure they're on par with ours because everyone's going through something, multiple things, and yeah, we have a lot more to relate to each other than we realize, which is beautiful.
Yeah, well, speaking about others, like what are we doing next week?
Yeah. I mean, next week we're going to get into
a little bit of a interesting, funnier, lighter.
So these were some heavy topics for us. I know you guys are obviously just listening, but for us it's been very emotional and heavy to talk about these things, which is, it's great. But yeah, next week's is going to be a little bit of a lighter episode. It's going to be something that probably everyone, no matter what you're going through in your life, everyone can relate to this in some way, shape, or form. We're going to be chatting about relationships, the best, the worst, those
good, the bad, the ugly,
those awful online dates, those
Tinder, Hinge, Bumble.
You know, just like, yeah, we're two single girlies right now.
What's it like to be single in your 30s and in your 20s and you know, all of the
dating
fun
culture,
dating culture, relationships. So stay tuned for that for sure.
Yeah, it definitely won't be as long as this episode. God love yous.
Okay, well, thanks for listening, everyone.
We're going to sign off here, and we will see you guys next week. Thanks so much for listening to our ramble, our stories being shared with you. We do greatly appreciate it. All right, bye guys.
Bye.
Sign me off. Just take the mic from me now.
I'm going to turn it off and then we'll digest.
There's a lot to go through there. Holy.